My name is Kalla Rhines, 29, and my company is a 3-room wedge on the 4th floor of a brick warehouse in Soma that smells like espresso and warm laptops. On the wall, our logo, Echo Loom, is taped up with blue painter's tape because we never got around to ordering the real sign. Under it, I've spent a year weaving the thing into existence, an AI that remembers meetings the way people do. Not as transcripts, but as threads, promises, deadlines, decisions, stitched across time. I wrote the engine called Threadweave. I named the feature Moment Pins. I owned the repo that hummed quietly on a cloud box labeled Loom Core 01. My co-founder, Damon Pike, owned the smile. He could stand in a doorway and make a freelancer extend their deadline without asking. He could lift his hand at a pitch night, and every head pivoted like we were already funded. For months, I told myself that was our balance. I built, he dazzled. It was 8:12 a.m. when I noticed the first cut. My push failed with a 403. I blinked, tried again, then watched the terminal spit back the same refusal like a polite bouncer. I checked access settings. My admin role had been downgraded to read only. I laughed, one sharp wrong note in a quiet office, and texted Damon. Me. Hey, weird permissions thing. Did we rotate tokens? Damon. On the road. I'll check later. No worries. No worries. I opened Figma to prep a flow for a midday design review. Half the frames were duplicated into a new project called Echo Loom Investor Deck. Owner, D. Pike. I swallowed air that didn't feel like air. Investor Deck? I checked the calendar. A new event blinked on my screen, bright as an alarm. Sandstone Capital Partner Pitch. Location, Menlo Park. Time, 10 a.m. Attendees, Damon Pike, Sandstone Partners. Me, not invited. I stared at the line that should have held my name and felt a blankness spread across me, the kind of blankness you get right before panic finds you. My palms cooled, my chest warmed. It was a chemical storm, cortisol, adrenaline, memory. I clicked the attachment. Damon's deck opened with a hero slide. Echo Loom, the memory layer for work. Slide 2, founded by Damon Pike. Slide 3, core innovation, Threadweave, TM, patent pending. My hands shook. Threadweave wasn't his word. He didn't know what the first T in my class diagram stood for. I scrolled to the architecture slide and felt a prick behind my eyes. He'd pasted my diagram raw. He'd even left the dumb joke I hid in the comments. Don't call this a graph, it's a quilt, like a fingerprint I couldn't deny. The room seemed to tilt. I remembered the night we named the company, both of us cross-legged on the floor, pizza box open, Damon asking how memories worked in my head. I told him I saw them as threads that cross and knot. He said, then let's loom them. I felt the betrayal land on top of that memory like a boot. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called again, voicemail. A Slack from our contractor, Keiko, blinked on my screen. Keiko. Morning, Damon sent me a new brand doc. Did you want me to swap your name out of the README? Said it's cleaner for investors. My throat went tight. Me, please don't change authorship. I'll handle messaging. Keiko. Copy. Also, he asked for a new splash screen with just his signature. Is that okay? Me. Hold. Hold was the only word I had that didn't sound like a scream. I stood up, walked to the whiteboard, and read the sentence we'd written last winter in red marker. We remember so humans can move. There was a smiley face next to it Damon had drawn with eyebrows, and a smirk. I wiped it away with the side of my hand until my skin turned pink. The office door opened. Our landlord, Ria, peered in, a saint with keys. Morning, Kalla. Everything good? I saw Damon on Instagram in a car with a coffee bigger than his head. Great, I said, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone who'd slept. Big day. When she left, I opened Loom Core 01's dashboard. The server logs ran like rain. A new API key had been created at 7:01 a.m. Owner, D. Pike. Permissions, full. There's a kind of anger that ignites fast and burns out. This wasn't that. This was cold fire, a measured burn that teaches you where the air ducts are. I opened my private notebook. I've always kept a parallel log of commits, hash, message, timestamp. Like a journal, only code speaks. I scrolled to the first night Threadweave worked, the moment when the clusters finally stabilized and a meeting resolved from chaos into a story. I remembered crying in my chair, alone and happy, listening to the radiator tick. If he was taking my story, I needed a better memory than his deck. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. Hi Kalla, this is Nisha from Sandstone Capital. Confirming Damon's pitch at 10. We'd love to see a live demo if possible. Are you joining? I stared at the text until the words stopped making sense. My fingers moved. Me. Hi Nisha, I wasn't looped. Just seeing this. Can I call in? Nisha. We prefer in-person for first partner meetings. If it's short notice, we can reschedule. Me. No need. I'll be there. I grabbed my laptop, shoved it into a backpack, and left the painter's tape sign behind. Outside, the San Francisco morning had that clean blue you get after fog peels back like the lid of a tin. A cyclist clipped past me, swearing softly at nothing. A bus sighed. I ordered a lift. As we crossed the bay, Damon's Instagram story bloomed at the top of my screen. Caption, "Let's build." Song, something pulsing and optimistic. He was in a black SUV, sunglasses on, rehearsing lines to the front camera like he'd lived them. Behind him, a printout of my diagram sat on the seat. I typed and deleted a dozen messages. You can't do this. I built it. I trusted you. None of them felt as large as the ache in my chest. The lift's AC rattled. My driver, Aaron, glanced in the mirror. You headed to Sand Hill? He asked. Yeah, I said. You pitching? I looked at myself in the mirror, unwashed hair in a claw clip, hoodie with a coffee stain. I guess. You'll do great, he said, like strangers can see the version of you you're trying to become. We pulled into the manicured curve of Sandstone Capital at 9:47. Glass, quiet water, a courtyard where money learns to breathe. I stepped out and time felt slippery, like walking on oil. Inside, the receptionist smiled in the way of people who have seen 1,000 nerves. Hi, name? Kalla Rhines, I said. She typed, then paused. You're not on the invite, but you're welcome to wait in the lounge. Across the lobby, through a pane of glass, I saw Damon. He was laughing near the conference room door, sleeves rolled, watch catching the light so it flashed like a tiny lighthouse. He looked relieved, like a man about to collect a version of the future he thought he deserved. He caught sight of me, and for a moment his face went blank. A perfect mirror of what mine had done 2 hours ago. Then the smile returned, careful and tight. He approached with arms open. Kalla, he said, low and friendly, as if he hadn't reduced me to read-only. Hey, I meant to. There was a last-minute shift. Sandstone wanted a streamlined story. You know how it is. Streamlined, I said, as in a story without the person who built it. He leaned in. This is optics. Titles and ownership get messy. Let me get us in the room. Once we're in, it's us forever. He said us like a password. Then add me to the meeting, I said. He hesitated, then nodded, already turning. Of course. I'll tell them you're joining for Q&A. Q&A. I watched him glide back toward the partners, his hand describing a circle as if he were drawing a halo he meant to wear. I sat. I opened my laptop. The Loom Core 01 monitor sat on my desktop, tiny graphs pulsing like heartbeats. If Damon live demoed, he'd hit the weave endpoint. It would query the very clusters I had nursed to life. My terminal flickered. A new connection spun up from a device tagged DPIKE demo. The cursor blinked, patient. Somewhere beyond the glass, Nisha's voice lifted, warm and interested. Walk us through the core engine, she said. And who wrote it? I heard Damon's voice roll back, smooth as velvet. I did. My finger hovered over a key that could quietly kill the endpoint. Leave his demo to freeze like a lake in winter. The other choice was to sit here, breathe, and let him sell a thing that lived under my ribs. The door to the conference room sealed with a soft thud. The cursor blinked again. I chose. The cursor blinked like a dare. My thumb hovered above the return key, the one that would cut Damon's demo mid-sentence. The idea of watching his confident face freeze, his voice choke, the partners tilt their heads in suspicion, it was intoxicating. But too clean, too small. If I killed the demo now, he'd spin a story about technical glitches, maybe even blame me. Investors forgive bugs. They don't forgive betrayal. So I let it run. I watched as Weave carried his request across my clusters and returned with perfect recall, as if I had just handed him my heart on a silver platter. I hated myself for the restraint, but I knew I needed proof before I made my move. Inside the glass-walled room, I saw his gestures. Damon's hand sliced the air, and the partners nodded, enthralled. He was a magician, and I was the ghost who built the trick. My stomach twisted, half fury, half grief. The session ran 30 minutes. When it ended, the partner stood, shook his hand, and walked out with smiles that meant money. Damon leaned back in the chair like he had just claimed a throne. When he stepped into the lobby, he saw me again. "Strong demo," I said flatly. "Yeah," he grinned. The engine really shined. The word engine caught in my ears like a knife. My engine. I didn't argue. Not yet. Instead, I said, "Let's grab dinner tonight. Celebrate properly." His eyes lit up, greedy. "That's the spirit. I'll book somewhere downtown. Investors love hearing we're aligned." Aligned. My jaw ached from holding back words. That night, over cocktails at a rooftop bar, Damon was all charm. He toasted. To us and to Sandstone's interest. I raised my glass, though the liquid burned more than alcohol should. Then I asked lightly, "Did you record the pitch?" "Of course, for the archive." He pulled out his phone, showing me the file name, sandstone.pitch.move. I smiled as if impressed, but what I saw was leverage. Later, when he stepped away to take a call, I synced his phone to my laptop with a cable I'd slipped into my bag. A minute later, I had the pitch video copied. His voice, his slides, his lies, all preserved. Back in my apartment, I played it on loop, staring at the way he claimed every line I'd written, every diagram I'd drawn. Each time he said, "I built," something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about erasure, about being rewritten out of my own story. At 2 a.m., I opened a burner GitHub account under the name Quilted Truth. I uploaded my private notebook of commits, every hash with date stamps that predated Damon's access. I added notes in plain language. Original author, Kalla Rhines. Repo, Echo Loom core. Evidence of theft attached. I didn't hit publish. Not yet. Because revenge wasn't about one strike. It was about the perfect moment to strike back. The next morning, Keiko messaged me again. Keiko. Damon wants new branding, Echo Loom by Pike. Do you want me to proceed? I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. Damon was erasing me in real time. I typed back, "Me, not yet. I'll send you updated assets." She replied with a thumbs up emoji, unaware she had just become a witness. I started assembling a timeline. Screenshots of my commits. The stolen deck. His recorded pitch. Keiko's Slack messages. Piece by piece, the truth became a weapon. 3 nights later, Damon texted, "Damon, Sandstone is leaning toward a term sheet. They want a clean founder narrative. I'll handle the public face. You just keep the tech sharp." I stared at that message until my eyes blurred. Clean founder narrative. Meaning, me erased. Again. And that's when my plan crystallized. I wouldn't just expose him. I'd make the entire world watch. The cursor blinked on my burner account again, 1 key away from detonation. But I stopped. Not yet. Because if I timed this right, he wouldn't just lose funding. He'd lose credibility, his network, his entire golden boy persona. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, "Patience, Kalla. Patience burns longer than rage." And then I smiled for the first time in days. The email sat on my screen like a ticking bomb. Sandstone wanted to confirm authorship. They wanted to know who had really built Threadweave. And they wanted me. For the first time in weeks, the power shifted, even if only by a thread. I didn't respond immediately. My instinct screamed to type, "Yes, I'm the lead engineer. Damon stole everything." But raw emotion was a trap. If I moved too fast, Damon could spin it as a bitter breakup, a founder squabble, or worse, a disgruntled ex-partner with an axe to grind. No, this had to be bigger, cleaner, undeniable. I texted Damon instead. Me. Congrats on Sandstone follow-up. Want me to prep technical docs for them? Damon. Nah, they're already convinced. Just optics. I'll handle. Handle. That word again. I closed my eyes and breathed. He didn't know Sandstone had reached out to me directly. That ignorance was my advantage. The next day, I walked into our office. The taped-up Echo Loom logo flapped slightly in the breeze from the window AC. Damon sat at my desk, feet up, typing fast on my keyboard. My keyboard. He didn't even look up. "Morning, Kalla. Investors want the repo scrubbed. Clean commits, no duplicate authors. We need the narrative straight." I froze. "You mean erase my name?" He finally glanced at me, smiling like it was nothing. "Not erase. Streamline. Don't take it personal." I felt the blood rise to my cheeks. Streamline. That was his polite word for delete. I said nothing. Instead, I opened my laptop, connected to my hidden burner repo, and stared at my growing archive of evidence. That night, lying awake in bed, I realized what I had to do. I wouldn't just answer Sandstone's email. I would give them something so airtight, so undeniable, that Damon couldn't talk his way out of it. And I knew exactly where to start. I called Keiko. "Hey," she answered, groggy. It was past midnight. "Keiko, I need you to forward me everything Damon sent you, the new brand doc, the splash screen request, all of it." "Can you?" Silence for a beat. Then, "Kalla, what's going on?" I hesitated, then told her everything, not all the details, but enough. Damon had cut me out, stolen my work, pitched it as his own. Her breath caught. Oh my God, I knew something was off. He kept rushing me, saying it was urgent to get your name off. "I'll send you everything." When her email arrived minutes later, my stomach turned. Damon hadn't just asked her to remove my name. He'd instructed her to backdate assets to make it look like I'd never been there at all. Forgery, proof of intent. My hands trembled as I saved the files. 2 days later, Sandstone called. "Hi, Kalla," Nisha's calm voice said. "We're conducting some diligence. Could you walk me through the origin of Threadweave?" I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry as paper. Of course. For the next 20 minutes, I explained everything. How I designed the clustering algorithm, why I called it Threadweave. The nights I stayed up debugging recursive loops until the sunrise bled through my blinds. At the end, she was quiet. Then she said, "That matches what Damon presented, almost word for word." "Almost," I said. "But there's a difference between living an idea and rehearsing one." She didn't reply, but I heard the weight in her silence. Later that night, Damon barged into the office, furious. "You went behind my back," he snapped. His voice was low but sharp. "Sandstone asked if you were the original author. What the hell did you tell them?" I met his glare. The truth. He laughed bitterly. "You think they'll care? They want vision, not code. I'm the vision. You're just—" He stopped himself, but the word hung in the air. Just a coder. Just a girl behind a screen. Just replaceable. Something inside me hardened forever. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, "Check your email tomorrow." Then I walked out. Back at my apartment, I opened the Quilted Truth repo. My cursor hovered over the Publish button. Once it went live, the world would see Damon for what he was. But timing mattered. If I released it too early, he might salvage his reputation. So instead, I crafted something else. An anonymous leak scheduled to drop into Sandstone's inbox at 9 a.m., the exact time of Damon's second pitch meeting with them. The evidence would hit while he was mid-sentence. As I hit schedule, a strange calm washed over me. For weeks I'd felt erased. For weeks I'd been read only. Tomorrow I would rewrite everything. Damon's subject line glared at me. "We need to talk now." I stared at it, fingers trembling above the trackpad. My leak was set to detonate in just 8 minutes. If I opened his email, if I responded, would I risk derailing everything? The clock on my screen ticked toward 9 a.m. Every second felt louder than my own pulse. Finally, I clicked. The message was short, frantic, unlike Damon's usual smooth style. "Damon, Kalla, I know what you're doing. Don't. We can fix this. Meet me at the office ASAP." My throat tightened. He knew. Had Keiko tipped him off? Had Sandstone forwarded my call? Or was it just Damon's paranoia finally catching up? Either way, the email told me one thing. My silence was working. I closed the message without replying. My cursor hovered over the inbox timer I'd set. 7 minutes left. I whispered to myself, "Hold the line." At 9:01, while Damon was no doubt standing in front of Sandstone's partners again, my email triggered. The package landed in their inboxes. My private commit log with timestamps. Screenshots of Damon's request to erase my name. Keiko's files proving backdated forgery. The video of Damon's pitch, where he claimed every invention as his own. Evidence woven together like the quilt I always imagined. I sat in my chair, heart pounding, imagining the partners opening those files one by one. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up. Unknown number. I answered. "Kalla," it was Nisha. Her tone was clipped, sharp. "We've just received some troubling materials. Can you confirm you sent them?" My mouth went dry. "Yes, I did." A pause. Then, "Thank you. We'll be in touch." She hung up before I could ask more. For the first time in weeks, I let myself exhale. But the calm lasted less than an hour. The office door slammed. Damon stormed in, face flushed, tie askew. He looked like a man who had just watched the ground open beneath him. "You think you're clever," he hissed, dropping lies into investor inboxes while I'm in the room. "Do you know what you've done?" I rose from my chair slowly. "I told the truth." He laughed, harsh and broken. "Truth doesn't matter. Perception matters. And right now, you look like a jealous partner trying to sink the ship." His words hit like blows, but I stayed steady. "You built your ship on stolen wood. It was always going to sink." For a moment, his mask slipped. His voice cracked. "If this dies, we both die. You don't get it, Kalla. Without me, no one cares about you or your code." I saw him clearly then. Not the visionary, not the charmer. Just a desperate man clinging to a story he no longer controlled. And it was intoxicating. My laptop chimed. Another email slid across the screen, this time from Sandstone. Subject: Request for immediate call, Echo Loom authorship dispute. Both our names were on the recipient line. Damon's jaw clenched as he read it over my shoulder. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll handle this together. We spin it, say you're bitter, that's all." I shook my head. "No, Damon. I'm done being spun." The Zoom window glowed, 4 square faces framed in expensive lighting. Nisha leaned forward, her tone surgical. "Let's get right to it. Damon, Kalla, there are conflicting claims about the authorship of Threadweave. We need clarity before we proceed." Damon spoke first, quick, polished, desperate under the gloss. "Partners, I can assure you, I architected the system. Kalla provided support, but the vision and execution were mine. Startups are messy, credits overlap. This is a distraction." His voice was honey poured over glass, but I saw the cracks. I inhaled, steadying myself. Threadweave was born in my apartment, on my laptop, months before Echo Loom even had a name. I have commits, dated proofs, design notebooks. What you saw in Damon's deck, that was my work. He copied it, word for word, diagram for diagram. Nisha's brow arched. "You're saying the diagrams Damon presented were yours entirely?" "Yes," I said, including a private joke in the comments. Damon didn't even notice it when he pasted them. The partners exchanged looks. Damon's jaw tightened. Kalla has always been emotional. She feels underappreciated, so she's inflating her role. The truth is, I built the product vision. Without me, it's just code with no market. She's lashing out because she doesn't understand how this game works. My hands trembled beneath the desk, but I forced my voice calm. "Without me, there is no game." I clicked share screen. My desktop filled the Zoom window. Folder, Echo Loom Origin. I opened commit logs, timestamps from 9 months ago. Video of Damon's pitch file, side by side with my repo, showing identical diagrams lifted whole. Slack screenshots from Keiko, proving he asked to erase me. The evidence sprawled across the screen like an indictment. The room on their side went silent. Finally, one partner cleared his throat. "This is serious. Damon, these materials show intent to misrepresent. Do you dispute them?" Damon's face flushed. This is out of context. Any founder consolidates IP under the company name. Kalla is sabotaging us because she doesn't have investor instincts." I cut in. "This isn't sabotage. This is survival. He stole my voice, my name, my future." The words cracked out of me sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Nisha leaned back, folding her hands. "We'll need to review these documents fully, but Kalla, your evidence is compelling. Damon, if this is accurate, it raises serious ethical and legal questions." Damon's mask slipped further. His eyes darted, his tongue wetting his lips. "This is ridiculous. Without me, she'll never raise a cent. She doesn't know how to sell. Investors want charisma, not log files." The partners' faces stiffened. His charm was collapsing in real time. And then, unexpectedly, Nisha said, "Kalla, if Damon were no longer part of Echo Loom, would you continue? Would you take this forward?" My breath caught. The question hung like a key above a locked door. Damon snapped. "You can't be serious. She's nothing without me. But I wasn't listening to him anymore. Inside, I felt the moment I had been waiting for, the exact point when revenge stopped being theory and became action. "Yes," I said clearly. "If Damon is removed, I'll keep building. I'll bring Threadweave to life the way it was meant to be, with honesty." The Zoom call ended with polite words, but the meaning was clear. Damon's empire was collapsing. He slammed the laptop shut beside me, his breath ragged. "You think you've won," he spat. You've doomed us both. If I go down, I'll take you with me. I looked at him, calm now, almost cold. No, Damon, you've been taking me down for months. I just stopped falling. The email from Sandstone kept replaying in my head. Next steps, Echo Loom restructure discussion. It was the closest thing to validation I'd felt since this nightmare began. But Damon's shadow loomed in the other notification. This isn't over. The next morning, I walked into the office to find Damon already there. He looked calm, too calm. A mask carefully reapplied. Good news, he said casually, sipping coffee. I've been in touch with the press. We'll get ahead of this little misunderstanding. By tomorrow, everyone will know the truth. I froze. What truth? He smirked. The truth that you've been unstable for months. That you threatened me, sabotaged the product, tried to tank our funding out of spite. I'll make sure everyone hears it before your little evidence makes a dent. My stomach dropped. He wasn't just fighting me in boardrooms anymore. He was coming for my reputation. I forced a laugh, though my hands shook. You're bluffing. Am I? He turned his laptop toward me. A draft blog post sat open on Tech Medium, headline bold and cruel. The dark side of startups, when co-founders turn toxic. And beneath it, lies dressed as facts. Screenshots of Slack messages, doctored to make me look manipulative. Email snippets twisted to paint me as erratic. You forged these, I whispered. Damon's smile widened. Optics, Kalla. It's all about optics. Investors read a headline, not commit logs. Who do you think the world will believe? The charming founder with connections, or the bitter coder crying theft? For a moment, fear swallowed me whole. He was right. Perception mattered. One viral article, and I'd be branded unstable forever. But then I remembered something. I wasn't alone anymore. Keiko, the contractors, even Sandstone, they had my files now. Damon could spin, but I had receipts. I looked at him steadily. You're scared. That's why you're trying to torch me before the truth catches fire. His jaw twitched. That evening, I called Keiko. He's preparing to smear me, I said flatly. If he publishes that post, I'm finished. I'll help, she said, without hesitation. He asked me to mock up some of those screenshots. I kept the originals. They prove you never wrote what he's claiming. Relief washed over me, another thread for my quilt of truth. The next day, Sandstone invited us both to an in-person meeting. A long oak table, glass walls, the weight of millions hanging in the air. Nisha opened with measured calm. We've reviewed both of your claims. It's clear there are serious issues. Damon, we've also received concerns about your public narrative. Can you explain? Damon leaned forward smoothly. Yes. Kalla has been unstable. She's threatened me. She's sabotaged files. I have evidence. He slid his laptop across the table. The Tech Medium draft gleamed like a weapon. Before the partners could react, I spoke. I'd like to show something. I opened my folder. Keiko's original Slack files, unedited. Then the doctored versions Damon had asked her to create. Side by side, the truth and the lie. Gasps rippled through the room. Damon, Nisha said coldly. These appear fabricated. His face paled. It's context. Marketing context. No, I cut in. It's fraud, just like the rest. The silence after that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Finally, Nisha folded her hands. We will not be moving forward with Damon. Echo Loom's path depends on Kalla. Damon's chair screeched as he shoved back, face twisted. This isn't the end. You think investors won't see through you? You think you can carry this alone? I met his glare. Watch me. The text from Damon burned on my phone. If Sandstone drops me, you won't just lose a partner, you'll lose everything. You don't know who you're messing with. It wasn't just bravado. It felt like a warning. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in my apartment sounded like footsteps. Every buzz of my phone like another threat. By dawn, my mind was a storm of questions. What did Damon mean? Did he have allies, or was he bluffing, trying to rattle me before the final blow? I wanted to believe he was cornered. But men like Damon never accepted corners. They made exits. At 10 a.m., I got a Slack ping from Keiko. Keiko, Kalla, check this. Damon just revoked my access. Repo is locked. He told the design team the project's on hold. My pulse spiked. Damon was sabotaging from the inside. If he couldn't control Echo Loom, he'd burn it down. I typed back fast. Me, I'll handle it. Keep every message. Don't delete anything. By noon, my inbox filled with forwarded emails, contractors confused, investors unsettled. Everyone asking the same thing: what's going on? Damon was spreading a narrative that I was shutting down the company out of spite. He was laying kindling, hoping his story would catch fire before the truth solidified. I knew I had to move first. That evening, I drafted a letter, transparent, detailed, unapologetic. It wasn't just to Sandstone, but to every investor Damon had courted. I attached logs, screenshots, Keiko's testimony, the doctored evidence. I told the story straight. This is what happened. This is who built Threadweave. This is who Damon really is. I scheduled it for morning. Once sent, Damon's lies wouldn't just collapse, they'd combust. But Damon wasn't done. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, this time a voicemail. I pressed play. His voice was low, venomous. You think a repo and some screenshots are enough to save you? I know where you live, Kalla. I know who you talk to. If you don't back down, I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me. My blood went cold. This wasn't just business anymore. The next day, I met with Sandstone in person. I showed them the voicemail, trembling as I pressed play in their glass conference room. The partners exchanged alarmed glances. Nisha's expression hardened. Kalla, this is beyond dispute now. This is harassment, possibly criminal. We will not tolerate Damon's involvement in any capacity. Relief mixed with fear. Damon was out, but now he was dangerous. As I left the meeting, my phone buzzed again. A simple text, no name attached. If I go down, I'll drag you with me. Watch your step. I stared at it, my hands shaking. Revenge had always been the plan, but now survival was part of it too. The shadow at my window haunted me all night. I lay in bed fully clothed, laptop open, my phone on silent but face up, waiting for the next move. By morning, my body ached from tension. My email campaign was already live. Investors across the valley were reading the truth. My evidence, my name. For once, Damon's lies weren't the only story in circulation. But fear gnawed at me. Damon wasn't the kind of man who surrendered quietly. At 8:15 a.m., my door buzzed. I froze. I tiptoed to the peephole. No one stood outside, just an envelope slid beneath the door. I bent down, heart hammering, and picked it up. Inside, a printed screenshot of my personal text messages with my sister. Messages Damon could only have obtained by hacking into my phone. At the bottom, scrawled in red ink, "Stop before it gets worse." My hands shook so violently I almost dropped it. I called Keiko immediately. "Keiko, he's inside my life. He has my texts. He's watching me." Her voice sharpened. "Kalla, this isn't just a business fight anymore. You need protection. Go to the police." But I hesitated. Police reports were slow. Investors moved fast. If Damon spun things before the law caught up, I'd still lose everything. I needed something stronger than sympathy. I needed a kill shot. That afternoon, Sandstone scheduled another meeting. They wanted a final decision about Echo Loom's future. I arrived early, sitting in the glass lobby with my laptop balanced on my knees. Damon stormed in 10 minutes later, his eyes bloodshot, his smile razor-thin. "Cute campaign," he muttered as he dropped into the chair beside me. "You think emails and commits make you bulletproof? I can still ruin you. I can ruin your family if I want." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "You already ruined yourself." He leaned closer, his breath hot. "You're not ready for what's coming." Inside the boardroom, the partners sat stiff, folders stacked neatly. Nisha's gaze swept between us. "We've heard enough accusations. Today we decide if Echo Loom has a future, and if so, under whose leadership." Damon launched in, voice theatrical, almost shouting. "Kalla is unstable. She forged those files. She's trying to steal my company because she knows she can't build without me." I stayed quiet, letting him unravel. His desperation hung in the air like smoke. When it was my turn, I didn't argue. Instead, I opened my laptop and played the voicemail. Damon's voice filled the room. "I know where you live. If you don't back down, I'll make sure you regret it." The partners' faces hardened. One of them whispered, "Jesus." Then I slid the envelope across the table. This showed up under my door this morning. Printed screenshots of my private texts. Damon hacked my phone. The silence was absolute. Finally, Nisha spoke. "Damon, your behavior is unacceptable. Not only are you removed from Echo Loom, but we are referring this to legal counsel." Damon's face collapsed. He sputtered. "You can't. This is slander. This is..." But the decision was sealed. For the first time, I felt the weight lift. Months of humiliation, silence, erasure, all of it cracked open in that moment. The partners turned to me, not him. The story was mine again. But Damon wasn't finished. As we left the building, he grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. His whisper was ice. "This isn't over. You've humiliated me in front of the valley. You've taken everything. And I swear, Kalla, you'll pay for it." The headline glared at me from my laptop. Sources claim former partners sabotaged Echo Loom from within. Below it, Damon's smirking headshot. Confident, polished, defiant. My stomach clenched. He had lost investors, lost his seat at Echo Loom. But in the media, he was still trying to paint me as the villain. The article quoted anonymous insiders, claiming I deleted code, leaked secrets, sabotaged demos out of jealousy. Each lie cut deeper than the last. I slammed the laptop shut, my pulse pounding. Rage and fear tangled inside me. If his story spread, it could poison everything I had rebuilt. I needed to fight fire with fire. That night, I called Keiko and 2 other contractors who had seen Damon's manipulation up close. "I need you on record," I said, voice raw. "Not Slack screenshots, not whispers. I need testimony, the truth straight from your mouths." Keiko hesitated. "If we speak publicly, Damon will come after us too." I exhaled. "He already has, but if we stay silent, he wins." After a long pause, she said quietly, "I'm in." The others agreed. The next morning, we filmed statements. 3 simple clips, each under 2 minutes. Keiko. I was told to erase Kalla's authorship and backdate files. Damon gave those instructions. Another contractor. Kalla was the only one who understood Threadweave's architecture. Damon didn't write a line. Their voices shook, but the words were clear. I edited the clips into a short video. The truth about Echo Loom. It wasn't flashy, just raw evidence. At noon, I uploaded it to YouTube under my own name. By evening, it had 50,000 views. By midnight, 200,000. The comments flooded in. "Damon is finished. Classic tech bro stealing from a woman founder. Kalla, stay strong, we see you." For the first time, the narrative was shifting in my favor. But Damon didn't go quietly. The next day, a blog post appeared under his name. My side of the story. It was venom wrapped in silk, a manifesto where he accused me of being unstable, manipulative, ungrateful. He painted himself as the betrayed visionary, abandoned by a partner who couldn't handle pressure. I read every word, my fists clenched, my jaw aching. Then I reached the final paragraph. "Kalla will regret making me her enemy. I don't forget, and I don't forgive." I felt ice run down my spine. This wasn't just a smear, it was a threat, written for the world to see. I forwarded the post to Nisha. Within minutes, she replied, "Kalla, this isn't just defamation anymore. This is intimidation. We'll escalate legally. You won't face him alone." Her words steadied me. For the first time, I realized I had allies now. Damon wasn't the only voice with a megaphone. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I drafted my own post. It wasn't angry, it wasn't defensive, it was honest. I wrote about the nights I spent coding until sunrise, the joy of building something that mattered, the pain of being silenced by someone I trusted. I ended with one line. Threadweave was built from memory, and memory doesn't lie. I hit publish. The Twitter DM from the New York Times tech desk pulsed on my screen like a live wire. "We want to tell your story. Are you ready to go on record?" For months, Damon had tried to erase me, to silence me, to smear me. Now, the biggest stage in tech journalism wanted to hand me a microphone. But microphones cut both ways. I typed and erased 6 responses. What if Damon spun it again? What if he twisted every word into another smear campaign? What if the press made me look bitter instead of brave? Yet the thought of saying nothing made my chest tighten. Silence had cost me too much already. Finally, I typed, "Yes, I'm ready." 2 days later, I sat in a cafe downtown, across from a reporter named Maya Tran. She had a small recorder on the table, her notebook open, pen poised. "Start at the beginning," she said gently. "How did Echo Loom come to be?" I told her everything, the late nights coding in my apartment, the first time Threadweave stitched a meeting into a coherent story, the painter's tape logo, Damon's charisma, his slow theft of my voice. As I spoke, my throat wavered between fire and tears. Maya listened, scribbling notes, her eyes steady. You know Damon will deny all this, right? I expect him to, I said. That's why I brought receipts. I slid a USB drive across the table. Commits, screenshots, the voicemail, the envelope, Keiko's testimony. The quilt of truth, all in one place. Maya nodded, sliding it into her notebook. This isn't just a startup story. This is a story about women in tech, about erasure, about power. Are you ready for what comes when this goes live? I hesitated, then said, yes, because memory doesn't lie. The article dropped the following Sunday. The startup Betrayal, how one founder tried to erase the woman who built it. It spread like wildfire. My face on LinkedIn feeds, my quotes on Twitter threads, my story dissected on podcasts. For once, I wasn't the ghost in the room. I was the story. The comments flooded in. Kalla Rhines deserves justice. Every woman in tech knows this story too well. Damon Pike should be blacklisted. But Damon wasn't finished. The day after the article broke, a new video appeared on his Instagram. He sat in a luxury apartment, calm, rehearsed, spinning his own narrative. Kalla is exaggerating. I gave her opportunity, mentorship. This is what happens when envy takes over. She couldn't handle the pressure, so she lashed out. I wish her well, but the truth will come out. It was smooth, too smooth. The comments split, some believers, some skeptics. That night, I received another email from an unknown address. Attached. A PDF filled with screenshots, invoices, and contracts. Financial documents showing Damon had embezzled Echo Loom's seed funds into his personal accounts. At the bottom, one line. He's not just a liar, he's a thief. Use this. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the evidence. It wasn't from Keiko. It wasn't from anyone I knew. Damon had more enemies than me. I stared at the files, heart pounding. If I released them, it wouldn't just end Damon's career. It could end his freedom. Was I ready to go that far? The breaking news alert flashed again. Federal investigators launch inquiry into Echo Loom finances. I sat frozen, coffee cooling untouched on my desk. For weeks, my battle with Damon had felt like a private war, fought with commits and emails, shadows and whispers. But now, the law had entered the arena, and Damon couldn't charm his way out of subpoenas. By afternoon, my inbox overflowed with journalist requests. CNN, Bloomberg, Wired. Everyone wanted a quote. My phone buzzed nonstop. I turned most of them down, but part of me knew the bigger the spotlight, the harder it would be for Damon to bury me again. That night, I agreed to one interview, live, broadcasted. If Damon wanted optics, I'd give the world mine. Meanwhile, his counterattack raged online. He posted long rants claiming he was the victim of a smear campaign orchestrated by me and jealous ex-contractors. His followers parroted his words, calling me unstable, manipulative, vindictive. But beneath each comment defending him, 10 more voices rose in mine. We've seen this before. He's lying. Women in tech go through this every day. Kalla, we believe you. The tide was shifting. 2 days later, federal agents raided Damon's apartment. Photos leaked. Boxes of financial records carried down marble stairs. Damon in handcuffs, his perfect hair disheveled. I watched the images on TV, numb. He had stolen money meant for Echo Loom's growth. Seed funds siphoned into luxury cars, vacations, watches. The evidence I'd been sent anonymously was real. And now it was public. That evening, Nisha called. Kalla, Sandstone is still interested in Echo Loom, but they want to know, are you willing to lead? Alone? My throat tightened. Alone had been my nightmare for so long. But now, after everything, it felt like freedom. Yes, I said, I'll lead. But Damon wasn't finished. From jail, he released a statement through his lawyer. These accusations are exaggerated. I remain a co-founder of Echo Loom, and I will fight for my rightful place. I laughed bitterly when I read it. Even in chains, he couldn't stop rewriting the story. The night before my live interview, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside, a broken piece of glass with a note scrawled across it in marker. Stories can shatter too. I stared at it, my pulse hammering. Damon might be behind bars, but his reach wasn't gone. He had allies, sympathizers, people who wanted me silent. The studio lights were hotter than I expected. I sat in the chair, mic clipped to my collar, makeup powdered to hide the sleepless circles under my eyes. A Across from me, the host smiled warmly, but my stomach churned. This wasn't just another article or YouTube clip. This was live television. Millions could be watching. Damon, too. Welcome back, the host said, turning toward the camera. Tonight, we're speaking with Kalla Rhines, the co-founder of Echo Loom, who's been at the center of one of Silicon Valley's biggest scandals this year. The camera light turned red. My pulse hammered. Kalla, the host continued, the public has heard Damon Pike's side. Tonight, we want to hear yours. What happened? I swallowed hard. What happened, I began slowly, is that I built something from nothing, an idea, a code base, a vision. And then the person I trusted most tried to erase me from it. For the next 15 minutes, I told my story, the sleepless nights, the stolen slides, the emails asking to delete my name. The threat slipped under my door, the voicemail promising I'd regret fighting back. The host asked sharp questions, but I stayed steady, reminding myself, this is my truth, my voice, my name. When the segment ended, the host leaned in quietly. Thank you for your bravery, Kalla. The world needed to hear this. Back in the green room, my phone buzzed violently, Twitter exploding, messages pouring in. Hashtags trending, stand with Kalla. But one message stood out, an email, subject line, all caps. Stop talking or you won't live to finish Threadweave. My breath caught. Attached was a photo of my apartment building, taken just hours earlier. I called Nisha immediately. Someone's watching me, I whispered. This isn't Damon anymore. This is bigger. She didn't hesitate. Kalla, we'll get you security. You're not alone in this. But you need to understand, the closer Damon gets to losing, the more dangerous he becomes. He has people who owe him favors. People who don't play by rules. I stared at the photo, my hands shaking. For the first time, I wondered, was revenge worth risking my life? Later that night, I sat in my apartment, blinds drawn, lights off. On my laptop, the live broadcast replayed, my face speaking with fire. On my phone, the threat glowed cold. Between them lay the knife's edge of my future, 3 sharp knocks. That voice, low, rough, unmistakable. Open up, Kalla. We need to finish this conversation. My breath hitched. Damon was supposed to be behind bars. I crept closer to the door, heart pounding so loud I thought he might hear it through the wood. Damon, my voice cracked. Silence for a beat. Then the voice again, harsher. You can't ignore me forever. Open the door. Every instinct screamed, don't. I grabbed my phone, dialing Nisha with trembling fingers. Straight to voicemail. I tried 911 next, but froze. If I called the cops and it wasn't Damon, if it was some stranger, some setup, the story would twist again. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Keiko. Keiko, Kalla, don't go near the door. Damon was released on bail this afternoon. He's not supposed to contact you. He's breaking conditions. My knees nearly buckled. Bail? He was out. And here. Another slam rattled the door. You think you've won? You humiliated me in front of the valley. But you don't understand, Kalla. Threadweave is mine, with or without you. His voice cracked on the last word. A mixture of rage and desperation. I whispered to myself, not anymore. Instead of opening, I hit record on my phone and held it close to the door. Damon ranted for minutes, about betrayal, about revenge, about how I'd regret crossing him. Each word, more evidence. Finally, his footsteps retreated down the hall. A door slammed somewhere below. I slid to the floor, shaking. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had proof now, hard proof. The next morning, I walked into Sandstone's office with the recording. Nisha listened, her face tightening. This is harassment. He violated bail. We'll escalate. Kalla, you're not just fighting for Echo Loom anymore. You're fighting for your safety. I know, I said quietly, but I'm not afraid of him anymore. That afternoon, I received another message from a blocked number. You think recordings will save you. Stories can be edited. Truth can be buried. But bones don't talk. My stomach turned. This wasn't just Damon. It felt darker, like others were circling now that his mask had slipped. I sat at my desk that night, staring at the roadmap for Echo Loom. Investors still believed. The world still wanted Threadweave, but every step forward felt stalked by shadows. I whispered to the empty room, he won't take this from me again. Not ever. The subpoena lay heavy in my hands. Damon's countersuit was bold, absurd, claiming I had stolen his intellectual property, sabotaged the company, and defamed him. It was a mirror image lie, designed to confuse, to drag me down with him. But in Silicon Valley, perception was currency. If he clouded the waters, investors might walk away from both of us. 2 weeks later, I walked into the courthouse, palms sweaty against the folder of evidence clutched to my chest. Reporters crowded the steps, cameras flashing, voices shouting my name. Kalla, did you steal Echo Loom's code? Kalla, are you afraid of Damon Pike? I kept walking, head high. Inside, every nerve trembled. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Damon sat across the aisle, suit crisp, expression smooth as ever. His lawyer whispered in his ear, smirking at me like they'd already won. I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't a startup pitch. This was survival. The judge entered. Proceedings began. Damon's lawyer rose first. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Pike, is a visionary entrepreneur whose idea was stolen by his former partner. Miss Rhines seeks to profit by tarnishing his reputation and misrepresenting his work. We have evidence. He clicked the projector. Up came doctored Slack screenshots. The same fabrications Damon had tried before. I clenched my fists under the table. Lies? All lies. When it was my turn, my lawyer stood. Your Honor, we will show that Mr. Pike systematically erased Miss Rhines's authorship, fabricated evidence, and even threatened her safety. What he presents today are forgeries. We have the originals. One by one, we displayed the real files. Commit logs with timestamps months before Damon's claims. Keiko's Slack archives showing Damon's exact instructions to falsify records. The voicemail where Damon said, "I know where you live." The courtroom murmured. Damon's mask slipped for the first time. Then came the most damning moment. My lawyer pulled out the anonymous PDF, financial records showing Damon siphoned seed funds into his personal accounts. The judge's brows shot up. Mr. Pike, do you have an explanation for these? Damon stammered, face reddening. This is fabricated, taken out of context. But the evidence was clear. As testimony dragged on, my heart pounded. But I felt something shift. For the first time, the weight wasn't on me alone. The truth was heavy, but it was on my side now. I glanced at Damon. He no longer looked untouchable. He looked cornered. By the end of the day, the judge adjourned. We will reconvene for final arguments tomorrow. As the gavel struck, Damon turned to me, eyes wild, lips barely moving as he hissed, "You think this ends here? I'll burn everything before I let you win." I sat frozen in my silent apartment, the power still out, only the pale light of my screen illuminating my face. For months, Damon had twisted reality, but now his threats weren't metaphors anymore. He meant fire, destruction, the end. I barely slept. Every sound outside my window made me flinch. By dawn, I packed a bag. Laptop, hard drive, evidence. If Damon planned to burn it all, I'd carry the truth with me, no matter what. At the courthouse, extra security stood by the doors. Reporters swarmed the steps again, questions flying like arrows. But inside, silence pressed like a storm, waiting to break. The judge entered. Final arguments. Mr. Pike, you may begin. Damon's lawyer rose, polished and calm. Your Honor, Miss Rhines is not a victim. She is a bitter coder spinning a fantasy to steal Echo Loom. My client's reputation has been unjustly destroyed. Damon sat beside him, but he didn't look calm. His eyes darted, hands fidgeting. Sweat beaded along his temple. When it was our turn, my lawyer stood. Your Honor, Miss Rhines has endured threats, harassment, and erasure. She has brought forward logs, witnesses, and recordings. And today, we submit one final piece. He pressed play. Damon's voice filled the courtroom from the recording at my door. You think you've won. You humiliated me in front of the valley, but Threadweave is mine, with or without you. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Mr. Pike, is this your voice? Damon shot to his feet. This is entrapment. She doctored this, just like everything else. The judge banged the gavel. Sit down, Mr. Pike. But Damon didn't. His voice rose, desperate, cracking. You don't get it. Without me, there is no Echo Loom. I built the vision. I made the calls. He slammed his fist on the table so hard the microphone screeched. And in that moment, the mask shattered. The gallery erupted. Reporters scribbling, cameras flashing despite the bailiff's shouts. Damon's meltdown was live news now. The judge raised her gavel again. This court will reconvene tomorrow for a ruling. Until then, Mr. Pike is remanded back into custody for violation of bail. Bailiffs moved in. Damon twisted, glaring at me as they pulled him away. "This isn't over, Kalla," he screamed. "I'll take you with me." But his voice cracked into a howl as the doors closed behind him. That night, back in my apartment, the power flickered back on. I sat at my desk, exhausted, staring at the glowing roadmap of Echo Loom. For the first time, I let myself believe it. I was free. Yet part of me knew Damon's shadow would linger. Even in defeat, he'd left scars. But scars are memory, and memory doesn't lie. The courthouse was hushed the next morning, like the air itself was holding its breath. Reporters lined the steps outside, cameras primed, headlines already half-written. Inside, I sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped tightly in my lap, staring at the wood grain until it blurred. This was it. Months of sleepless nights, fear, humiliation, rage, boiled down to a single decision. The judge entered. Everyone rose. She glanced at Damon, disheveled in his suit, eyes red from another night in custody. Then she turned to me. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and exhibits, she said evenly, "This court finds that Damon Pike engaged in fraudulent misrepresentation, financial misconduct, and harassment. His countersuit against Kalla Rhines is dismissed in its entirety. Effective immediately, Kalla Rhines is recognized as the sole founder and rightful CEO of Echo Loom." The gavel struck. For a moment, the sound rang like thunder in my chest. Damon shot up, shouting incoherently, but bailiffs restrained him. His words dissolved into echoes. All I heard was my name, Kalla Rhines, spoken aloud, official, undeniable. Reporters scrambled, cameras flashed. Nisha placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "It's over, Kalla, you did it." But inside, I knew this wasn't victory, it was survival. That night, back at my apartment, I opened my laptop. Threadweave's prototype still ran, lines of code flowing like veins across the screen. My code, my creation. For so long, I had been terrified of being erased. Now, finally, my name was written in permanent ink. But the cost had been steep. Scars, sleepless nights, shadows I might never fully shake. I typed a note at the top of the codebase. Echo Loom, built on memory, and memory doesn't lie. I hit save. The next week, I stood before a new team of engineers and designers, people who had chosen to join me. I felt the weight of their eyes, their belief, their trust. Echo Loom isn't about one person, I told them. It's about stories that survive, voices that can't be erased. We'll build this honestly, and no one, ever again, will take that from us. I thought the gavel had ended it. But endings are rarely so clean. Even after the verdict, the whispers followed me, anonymous emails, Twitter trolls echoing Damon's words, investors asking cautiously, "Are you sure the drama is over?" The court had given me back my name, but healing? That was a longer battle. Weeks passed. I poured myself into Echo Loom. The first new prototype launched, a smoother, faster version of Threadweave. Reviews buzzed with excitement. Finally, a tool that makes meetings human again. My team celebrated, but late at night, I still checked my locks twice. Damon's shadow lingered in my mind, like a ghost at the edge of every success. One evening, Keiko stopped by the office. She stood at the window, looking out at the city. "You know he won't just disappear, right?" I nodded. "I know." "Then why keep going?" she asked softly. I thought about it. About the sleepless nights, the fear, the constant fight to be heard. Then I said, "Because if I stop, he wins anyway. And this story isn't his. It's mine." Later that week, I received a letter, handwritten, shaky, from Damon. "Kalla, they'll never understand what I tried to build. You stole it from me. But in a way, you also saved it. I don't expect forgiveness. Just remember, without me, there is no Echo Loom. You can't erase that." I folded the letter and locked it away. He was wrong. He was a ghost clinging to relevance. And ghosts only echo when you let them. The next day, I gave a keynote at a startup conference. Thousands of young founders stared up at me. I told them not about code, but about resilience. Sometimes, I said, the hardest bug to fix isn't in the software. It's in the system that tells you your voice doesn't matter. Don't let anyone patch you out of your own story. Applause thundered. The news alert froze me in place. Former entrepreneur Damon Pike found dead in his cell. Officials investigating foul play. For months, I had wished for Damon to vanish, to stop haunting me, to stop clawing at my story, but not like this. My phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists, colleagues, even strangers. Kalla, do you have a comment on Damon's death? Do you feel vindicated? Vindicated? I felt sick. Damon had been a liar, a thief, a monster in a tailored suit. But he was still human. Now he was gone, leaving behind more questions than answers. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his threats, his letters, his voice at my door. Had he orchestrated his own end, or had someone silenced him before he could drag others down? The line from his last note echoed in my mind. Without me, there is no Echo Loom. You can't erase that. Was this his final act of control? Ensuring he would always remain stitched into my story? 2 days later, I was called to meet with federal investigators. A stern woman slid a folder across the table. Ms. Rhines, we have reason to believe Damon's financial misconduct connected him to larger players, shell companies, offshore accounts. And now, his death complicates things. I frowned. Are you saying someone killed him to cover their tracks? She didn't answer directly, just tapped the folder. You might still be a target. His enemies may think you have what he left behind. That night, I opened my email. Waiting in my inbox was a message from an encrypted account. Subject: The loom is larger than you know. Attached: a file labeled echochain.zip. My hands trembled as I hovered over the download. Damon was gone, but his code, or maybe his secrets, were still alive. I clicked. The folder unfolded into spreadsheets, transaction ledgers, and buried deep, a manifesto written in Damon's voice. It spoke of Echo Loom not as an app, but as part of a network of influence, funded by shadowy investors who wanted more than productivity software. They wanted control of information, narratives, memory itself. My stomach dropped. Had I stumbled into something bigger than betrayal, bigger than a startup war? The glow of my laptop burned into my eyes. The manifesto was still open, the words pulsing as if alive. Hello, Kalla. Ready to finish what he started? My throat tightened. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Who was typing? Damon was dead. At least that's what the headline said. I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. The silence of my apartment pressed heavy around me, but the unease didn't fade. The light on the camera had been real. Someone had been there, inside my system, watching. The next morning, I took the laptop straight to the investigators. They combed through the files, their brows furrowed. Ms. Rhines, one of them said, this isn't just startup code. These documents point to a larger network, money laundering, narrative manipulation, possibly even election interference. My stomach lurched. Damon hadn't just stolen from me. He'd been a pawn in something vast, dangerous. And now, by inheriting his code, I'd inherited his enemies. That night, Keiko called. Her voice was urgent. Kalla, listen. Damon was sloppy, but the people he worked with aren't. If they think you're sitting on Echo Chain, they won't stop at threats. You need to decide. Either destroy it or use it. Use it how? I whispered. As leverage, to expose them, to finish the fight Damon never could. I stared at the hard drive on my desk. Inside it lay the truth, or maybe a curse. Part of me wanted to wipe it clean, to burn every trace of Damon's toxic shadow. But another part, the part that had survived erasure, betrayal, and fire, knew something else. If I destroyed it, the real villains might stay hidden. If I used it, I could end them. The next day, I stood before my team. They looked at me with trust, with expectation, with fear. I have something, I said carefully. Something Damon left behind. It's bigger than us, bigger than Echo Loom. But if we're brave enough, we can shine a light into the darkest corners of this industry. Nisha frowned. Kalla, this isn't just tech anymore. This is war. Cliffhanger ending for part 19. Before I could respond, the office lights flickered. On the big screen in the conference room, black text appeared on a white background. You've opened the loom. Now you weave with us, or against us. My team gasped. We weren't alone anymore. The words glared from the conference screen. You've opened the loom. Now you weave with us, or against us. My team stared at me, fear etched into their faces. Nisha whispered, Kalla, this isn't Damon anymore. This is something else. I stood, fists clenched, heart hammering. Damon had been a liar, a thief, a monster, but this was bigger. This was the system behind him. And they thought I would bend. That night, I stayed alone in the office. The file, echochain.zip, still sat open, its ledgers and manifests laid bare. Every line of data was proof. Shell companies, shadow funding, hidden hands pulling strings across industries. If I destroyed it, maybe I could finally sleep. If I kept it, I would always be hunted. But if I exposed it, maybe, just maybe, the cycle would end. At 3 a.m., I opened a live stream. No editors, no PR filter, just me and the truth. "Hello," I said, voice trembling but steadying with every word. "My name is Kalla Rhines. You've heard my story, the betrayal, the erasure, the courtroom. But what you haven't seen is what hid beneath it all. I shared the files, the transactions, the manifesto, the faces of companies that thought they could stay in the dark. The loom isn't Damon Pike. It's the people who believe stories, memories, and truth can be bought. Tonight, that ends. By morning, it was everywhere. News outlets dissected every document. Investigations launched across continents. Investors scrambled. The faceless network that had once backed Damon scrambled to deny, to smear, to survive. But the web of evidence was too tight. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Weeks later, I stood on stage at Echo Loom's official relaunch. My team stood behind me. The audience rose in applause. I smiled, this time without fear. Echo Loom was born out of betrayal. But betrayal isn't the end of the story. Memory survives. Stories survive. And when we tell the truth, loudly, fearlessly, we weave something stronger than lies. Applause thundered. I felt the weight of survival shift into the freedom of victory.